They say the forest is silent. That's a lie. Aokigahara isn't quiet, it's listening. The kind of listening that makes the hair on your neck rise, like something is leaning just behind your ear. Breathing. I'm not a thrill seeker. I'm not one of those YouTubers who jumps off cliffs or taunts ghosts for clicks. I was drawn to Aokigahara for reasons I still don't fully understand. Maybe it was the stories, maybe the mystery. Or maybe it was something darker, something already waiting for me there. I had heard of the legends, the suicides, the way people vanish inside without a trace. But I didn't go for content. I went because I wanted to see if the fear was real. The moment I stepped past the tree line, my phone lost signal. Not just bars, everything. No GPS, no time. Just the black mirror of my screen reflecting a face I barely recognized anymore. The forest absorbed all sound. No birds, no wind. Just a damp stillness that felt thick in my lungs. Each step felt wrong, like I was intruding. Like I was being watched. I followed a faded ribbon tied to a tree. They say people leave them behind to find their way back. That's when I realized how deep I already was. I hadn't been walking long, but the trail had vanished behind me. I turned back, expecting to see the path I'd come from. There was nothing but trees, identical, unmoving, as if they'd shifted behind me. My compass spun in circles. My heart followed. Still, I kept going, because something was pulling me forward. Not physically, but through some terrible curiosity I couldn't resist. The deeper I went, the colder it got. Not like a change in temperature, more like something draining the warmth out of me. Then, just before the last light faded through the trees, I heard it my name, spoken in a voice I hadn't heard in 10 years. My brother's, but my brother is dead. Aokigahara is known by many names, the Sea of Trees, the Forest of Suicides, but the locals simply call it that place. You won't find tour guides offering night walks there. Even the signs at the edge of the forest don't welcome you. They warn you. Large white boards nailed to trees near the entrances plead with visitors in both Japanese and English. Your life is a precious gift from your parents. Think about them, your siblings, your children. And beneath the message, a phone number, suicide prevention, printed in bold. But the forest doesn't beg you to leave. It waits. Beneath its thick canopy, sunlight dies before it hits the ground. The volcanic rock, sharp and uneven, is riddled with hidden caverns and holes that could swallow a person whole. The magnetic properties in the ground are said to interfere with compasses and GPS. One more reason why so many get lost. But it's not the terrain people fear most. It's what lingers there. What doesn't want to be seen? The Japanese believe in spirits known as eerie, souls of the dead who have died with deep trauma, sorrow, or rage. Unlike ghosts that pass on, eerie are stuck, roaming endlessly, searching for closure they'll never find. In Aokigahara, these spirits are said to appear in white funeral garments, with long black hair hanging over blank, eyeless faces. They drift. Sometimes they float, but they never forget. And if you see one, it means something's already taken an interest in you. Locals won't enter the forest unless absolutely necessary. Even then, many tie ropes to their waists or trees behind them, red or white cords, so they can find their way back. Volunteers sometimes go in to search for bodies, not to rescue, to retrieve. Most of them work silently, and when they find something, they mark it with a flag. Sometimes it's a skeleton, sometimes a tent. Sometimes, just a pair of shoes, neatly placed side by side. There are no birds in Aokigahara, no rustling of animals. The silence isn't peaceful, it's oppressive, like the forest itself is holding its breath. I had heard all of this before going in. But hearing is different from feeling. You can't smell the forest through a story. You can't feel the cold grip of air around your throat when you step off the main path. You can't hear the second set of footsteps behind you when you pause to drink water. I had prepared for the night extra batteries, a flashlight, food, and layers of clothing. I thought I was ready. I thought I knew what to expect. But no research warned me about the whisper that mimicked my brother's voice, or the fact that the whisper was moving closer. The last thread of sunlight vanished behind the trees like a dying ember, leaving only a heavy gray that sank quickly into black. I set up camp near an old pine with a trunk wide enough to block wind, though the air was still and unmoving. The tent snapped into place with a dull rustle. I didn't make a fire. Open flames weren't allowed in the forest, and honestly, I didn't want to attract attention. Not from animals, not from people, and definitely not from anything else. I sat inside the tent with my flashlight flicking weak circles across the thin fabric walls. Everything felt closer at night. The trees, the silence, my own breath. I ate a protein bar without tasting it and drank from a bottle that shook slightly in my hand. I kept telling myself I was fine, that this was just another dark forest, that the stories were exaggerations. But then I heard it. A soft tap, not loud. Just a single deliberate tap, like a fingertip against the outside of the tent. I froze, holding my breath. It came again. This time, 2 taps, not random. Not an animal, rhythmic. I unzipped the tent slowly, flashlight in hand, and scanned the area. Trees, darkness, nothing moved. No wind, no bugs, no animals scurrying across leaves. Just silence, thick as syrup. I stepped outside and walked a slow circle around the tent. My boots crunched softly on the forest floor, which was strangely smooth, too smooth, as if no one had walked here in a very long time. And then I saw it. An old tent, maybe 10 meters away, partially collapsed and covered in moss. One side had caved in, and a tarp flapped weakly in the breeze I couldn't feel. It wasn't part of any camping area. No trail led to it. It was just there, like it had always been. I approached it, hesitating with every step. Inside, I found a pair of shoes, side by side, dusty but undisturbed, a cracked phone face down beside them, a notebook that had gone soggy from rain, its pages stuck together and illegible. But what unsettled me most was the sleeping bag. It was zipped shut, perfectly, too perfectly, as if it hadn't been opened in years, or as if someone had just closed it from the inside. I backed away slowly, heart thudding, the flashlight beam shaking in my hand. And then I heard something new, crying. Soft, muffled, female, not from the abandoned tent, from deeper in the woods. It was close enough that I should have seen whoever it was, but there was nothing, just that eerie, low wailing, like someone grieving or whispering in pain. It didn't rise or fall. It was steady, looping, almost like a recording on repeat. I turned back toward my own tent and saw something that wasn't there before, a red ribbon, tied around the tree closest to my shelter, tight, fresh, and swaying gently even though the forest was still. I stood frozen, staring at the red ribbon fluttering from the tree. It wasn't there before. I was sure of it. I had checked that tree touched it even when I'd set up my tent. But now the ribbon was tied in a tight, perfect bow, bright red against the bark like a warning or a marker. My stomach churned. Behind me, the crying stopped. The forest went still again, but not in the natural way. It felt like something had taken a deep breath and was waiting, watching for what I'd do next. I don't know why I followed the sound. Maybe I wanted to help, maybe I was curious, or maybe something wanted me to follow. I stepped away from my tent, deeper into the trees, flashlight beam cutting through the dark like a knife through wet cloth. My boots crunched over dead leaves, then stopped. The ground beneath me changed softer, almost spongy. I looked down. Another ribbon, then another. A trail of them leading into the black. They were tied higher now, above my head, stretched between branches like some kind of signal. Or a path. I told myself to stop, to turn back, but I didn't. I couldn't. My body moved on its own, legs heavy but obedient. That's when I noticed my watch had stopped completely. The second hand was twitching, like it was trying to move but couldn't. I checked my phone dead screen. Not low battery, just blank. No glow, no warmth. It felt like holding a stone. The air grew colder. Not sharp, just hollow, as if something had taken all the energy from the forest, like I had walked into a space that didn't want to exist. Then up ahead I saw her, a figure in white standing between two trees. Pale dress, long dark hair covering her face, her arms dangling at her sides like ropes. She wasn't moving, not even swaying, just standing. I should have screamed, should have run, but I stood still, my breath caught in my throat. The flashlight beam trembled in my hand, but even when I dropped it, the light didn't move off her, like the beam was locked onto her shape. Then she twitched, not turned, not stepped, twirled like a marionette on a fraying string. I blinked and she was gone, but her voice was not. It came from behind me, not a whisper. A sentence. "Why did you leave me?" It was his voice. "My brother." I turned, expecting nothing, but there was movement fast, too fast, just out of my peripheral vision. Branches snapped above me. I spun in circles, panicked, every instinct screaming now. I ran, not toward the tent, just away, through the black, through the trees that seemed to close in as I moved. I didn't recognize anything. There were no ribbons now, no markers, just cold, endless forest. The crying started again, closer, louder, then a new sound, breathing. My own? No, it wasn't coming from my mouth. It was beside me, running with me. I didn't dare look to the side. I knew if I turned my head even slightly, I'd see something I wasn't meant to. Something that had been with me longer than I realized. The breathing stayed beside me, never faltering, never gasping for air. It was calm. Inhuman. I ran until my legs threatened to give out, until the air burned in my chest, until the trees began to blur and twist. And then I stopped, not because I wanted to, because I couldn't move anymore. I was standing in a clearing. I hadn't seen it before. The ground was covered in moss, and in the center stood a lone tree, blackened, leafless, wrong. Its bark was scarred, as if something had scratched it with nails for years. Hanging from one of the branches was a rope, frayed and swinging slowly. No wind, no movement, but the rope swayed. I stepped back. Behind me, I heard footsteps. No, not footsteps. The sound of bare feet dragging across damp ground. Slow, wet, deliberate. I turned and saw nothing. Just darkness layered on darkness, but I could feel it, something behind the trees. Watching, waiting, something that had brought me here. My flashlight, which had gone dim, flared to life on its own. The beam shot forward and caught a face. Not human, eyes too wide, no pupils. Skin pale and stretched, like plastic melted over bone. Its mouth didn't move, but I heard it speak, deep in my skull. "You came looking for the dead?" Then it smiled, not a grin. A slow, cracking stretch of the mouth, too far, too thin. The skin split at the edges, but no blood came out. Just a dry, papery sound. I screamed finally, and I ran. I don't remember how I found my tent. I don't even remember running. 1 second, I was there in the clearing. The next, I was crawling back inside the shelter like an animal, sobbing, covered in dirt and leaves and something else, something that smelled like iron and rot. I zipped the tent shut and stayed awake the entire night, listening. No breathing, no tapping, nothing. That silence was worse than the noise. When the sun finally pierced the trees, I stumbled out, disoriented and weak. The forest looked different, brighter, empty. The red ribbon was gone. So was the old tent. So was the rope. I hiked back out without ever checking the compass or my phone. relying only on instinct and something else, some small, annoying whisper that kept saying left, left again, right, stop. Maybe it was survival instinct, maybe it was still guiding me. It was almost sunset when I emerged at the edge of the forest, filthy and shaking. A local man in a passing van stopped when he saw me. He didn't ask questions. He just stared and muttered something under his breath before handing me a bottle of water. I asked him what he'd said. He replied, eyes never meeting mine. He walked out. It let you. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, strange things have started happening. It's always around 2:17 on my med exact time. I'll be lying in bed, trying to sleep, and I'll hear it soft, almost polite. Tap, tap on my window. I live on the 3rd floor. There's nothing out there. I've checked. I don't go into forests anymore. I don't even go near trees. Because the thing I saw in Akigahara didn't stay in Japan. It came home with me.